we need to open up our panel. And this is going to be a performer. So we'll right click on the performers group. We'll say add and new file. It's going to be an Objective-C class. And we're going to name it TM run task. Hit return. And this class is going to have one method. It's going to be a class method. And it's going to return a string. And we'll call it execute task at path with arguments. And our path is going to be an NS string. And we'll call this one launch path. And with arguments. And arguments is going to be an NS array. And we'll call the array arguments. And I'll go ahead and put this on 2 lines. Make it nice and easy to read. And then we can copy this. And then go to our implementation file. And we'll paste it in here. And now we need to get the NS task code from our Twitter class. So let's go back over to TwitterM. I'm going to close this up. And we'll scroll up to the top right where we're starting our task, where we create it, all the way down to where we release it. And I'm going to cut this with Command X. I'll go back to the task, and I'm going to paste it in here. And there's only a couple of changes we need to make here. First, we're going to change this hard-coded path to use the launch path that's coming in from the calling code. So I'll put launch path here. And the other thing we need to do is return the string, because this method returns a string. And so we say return string. Now we don't have to worry about memory here because we're already auto-releasing the string at the same time we create it. This is all the work we need to do to this class. So we'll save this, and we're going to go back over to our TM Twitter class, and we're going to set this class up to use that method. And the first thing we have to do is go to the top of the page and add an import statement. Now we have access to that class method that's in there. We'll go back down to our method, and right here, where all that code was, we're going to create a string, because that's the value we're going to get back. And I'm going to call this one XML string, just so it's more specific as to what this string is containing. And then we're going to use our TM run task class. And we're going to call the method execute task at path. And here we're going to give it the path to curl. So that's user bin curl. And our arguments are going to be the arguments that we created right above. And now we replaced all of that code that we had here with this one line. We can clean up some other code as well and introduce a new concept, global variables. You've probably heard that global variables are evil and to stay away from them. They can definitely cause you problems if you use them incorrectly. But these global variables are going to hold constant strings. That means if you try to change the value of these global variables, you will get a compiler warning. The compiler will also recognize if you misspell the variable name. In contrast, if you misspell a literal string, the compiler will not catch the error. So using these will not only cut down on the amount of code you write, but also help you catch errors. Another thing to consider, when one of these global variables is used throughout your code, you only have one place to go to make any necessary changes. So let's use this technique and create them for the launch path and the Twitter credentials URL. So I'll copy the URL, and I'm going to go to the top of this file using Command up arrow. And right below the import statements, I'm going to add a declaration. So I'll say NS string, and then we're going to use the keyword const, and we'll call this one TM launch path. And we'll set its value to user bin curl. And we'll create another one. And we'll call this one TM credentials URL. and we'll set it equal to the value of the URL. We'll save that and we'll go down in our code and we'll replace the original values with their constant counterparts. So here, instead of having the URL, I'll change this to TM credentials URL. And you can see we get code completion help with those. And for our user bin curl, and we'll change that to TM launchpath. And while we're here, we should also create a method that returns a formatted username and password. We'll be using that in our update function as well. So I'll just copy all of that, and I'll cut that out with Command X, and I'll just put it right above this method. And this is going to return an NS string. We'll call this name and password. And I'll paste in what's on the clipboard. And instead of setting a string, I'm just going to return the value. Now when we call this method, it'll return that formatted username and password for us. And where we're going to need that is right here where it says user and pass. We'll change this to self, name and password.